Welcome back to Close Up. We can't say it enough. For the folks who really love politics and campaigns here in New Hampshire, it looks like we're in for an exciting election year ahead with competitive Democratic and Republican primaries for governor. Today in studio, we're joined by Chuck Morse, the former state Senate president, who is one of the candidates for governor on the GOP side. Senator, thanks for being here.
Well, thanks for having me.
So let's talk about motivation first. Why are you running for governor?
Well, I think that's the brightest part of being out on the road all the time. You know, New Hampshire is the envy of the Northeast. Our economy is driving that envy. I've been a big part of that. It wasn't by luck. It wasn't by accident. As I served as Senate president, we created a conservative agenda that's working for New Hampshire. We drove it, and with Governor Sununu, you know, we've made New Hampshire a great place to live.
What is one item on that conservative agenda that Governor Sununu either didn't get done or didn't want to get done that you will get done?
Well, I think the next thing we have to get done is parental rights. We're working very hard on education in New Hampshire. We've proven that we can do it. We have to get back. We have to work with the House to make sure we can get the support to pass that. But we want parents to be involved in education.
This could be a three-person race, but right now it's just you and former U.S. Senator Kelly Ayotte. For Republican voters out there, what is the contrast that you would present to them between you and the senator?
Yeah, I'm running on the fact that I got things done in the state of New Hampshire. We certainly thought that we had to cut taxes in this state to drive an economy and make things work here. We did that. We thought we had to invest in education. We started with Governor Sununu talking about investing in kindergarten. Then we invested in education freedom accounts that are working just fantastic for the state. The legislature just made more investment in that. Those are the kind of things I want to go back and talk about. I think they've worked for New Hampshire, and they'll work even more when we drive them in the future.
She has some state experience too, though.
Oh, listen, Kelly and I are friends. I mean, there's one thing about that I don't worry about. I'm going out and talking about Chuck Morse. Chuck Morse accomplished a lot. Whether you're driving up 93, I started back in 1998 saying I was going to get this job done. We got it done. When we needed water to make sure we got it over to Plaistow, New Hampshire because of contamination, I got that job done, and we worked with 7-8 communities to make it happen. All the issues we've dealt with up here with Governor Sununu to make sure that we drive an economy, we got it done.
So you ran for U.S. Senate last year, didn't win in the primary. Former President Trump was here recently and said he regretted the fact that he didn't endorse you in that race. Given his latest indictment over trying to overturn the 2020 election, does that give you any pause in potentially accepting an endorsement from him if it would come in this race?
Well, look, he was a president. You know, when a president stands up on the stage and says, I regret that I didn't give you my endorsement, I regretted it too. It might have made a difference in that race, and I certainly believe that we were driving the right message for the state of New Hampshire about the problems we see with Washington. We don't want Washington here telling New Hampshire what to do, and I'll still continue to fight for that.
Moving forward, though, you would welcome his endorsement if it came this cycle?
I'd welcome his endorsement.
So this has become a bit of a flashpoint. It's kind of a semantic thing, but it's been in the ether, just kind of the debate lately after some comments Senator Ayotte made. Is there an abortion ban in New Hampshire?
No, what we did in New Hampshire, and I was part of making this happen, was we banned abortion in the 7th, the 8th, and the 9th month. That's the right thing to do. It's what the people want here in the state of New Hampshire. I made that happen.
We know Republican leaders have said that they don't want to expand anything about those restrictions or the law as it stands currently. But if you get a more conservative legislature and a bill lands on your desk as governor that would say take that restriction down to 15 weeks gestation, would you sign that?
Yeah, the bill that we put in place with banning abortion in 7, 8, 9 months, when I'm going around the state of New Hampshire, it's what the people believe in. They believe that's the right thing to do, is stop late-term abortions. That's what's working for New Hampshire.
So you wouldn't change it then?
I'd go with what we have right now, and I'd work with the legislature to make sure we keep that.
Okay. It's called the Fetal Life Protection Act, and there's a threat to fetal life out there that we don't talk about as much, and that is the disappearing of maternity care in New Hampshire, particularly in rural areas. We see women having to drive farther and farther to see an OB when they're pregnant, particularly if they live in the very northern parts of the state. So what would you do as governor? Do you think it's the governor's role to try and expand that access? And do you have any ideas about what would be done?
Well, I think we've always had concerns about health care in the rural areas in New Hampshire. I think we have to constantly be working at that. We've worked with the hospitals to make sure that they work with the outlying hospitals. That's an important part of what we believe in here in New Hampshire. We don't just campaign down in Concord and Manchester and Nashua and Salem. We campaign throughout the state, and we have to listen to the concerns in the rural areas, and we have to help them solve problems.
Any specifics, though, on what might be done to bring that care back?
Well, I think, again, you have to work with the larger hospitals, and we have to get them to work with the other outlying hospitals. That's what I tried to do as Senate President, to make sure that we could save them hospitals. And that's an important part of how you work in New Hampshire. You know, we have 400 legislators in the House because we have to hear from everybody, and we're constantly going to do that.
You mentioned education before. Let's get to more of that. If you've got the votes in the legislature to expand the access to education freedom accounts, where would you set the family income threshold?
Well, I think on education freedom accounts, everybody should have access to it. I think that's where we need to go in the future. But, you know, just like when we started charter schools, we've been a huge success. And actually, Republicans, Democrats, everybody worked to make that happen. And then all of a sudden, we lost a part of our audience there. But the schools are a huge success. We got to give parents choice. And that's what we're working on, and the more choice we give them, the better. And sure, I'd work to make sure everybody has access.
I know this is a matter of principle for Republicans, but were there any concerns over cost if you do expand to everyone?
No, I think when you look at the basis of what cost is in that program, eventually the cost savings will come to our communities in that program, and we need to keep driving that. But the one thing you have to constantly look at is, are more people using it because they wanted choice? And it's got parents involved. You know, I told you I support parental rights. That's what works for New Hampshire. We need to get out there and get that done. People
have a lot of access to information about what's going on in public schools in terms of performance and things like that. Less so with the education freedom accounts. Do you want more oversight of that program? I don't think there needs to be more oversight. I think there has to be more involvement where parents are talking about the successes that they're having with their children in those programs. That's what happened with charter schools. I can tell you, Senator D'Alessandro and I used to attend the same charter school functions all the time because he had a grandson there, and we attended it because it was working and we wanted to bolster up the attendance and make things happen. We got to do the same thing with education freedom accounts. What's your plan to decrease energy costs for Granite Staters? Are we going to see more transmission, more projects coming to the state? No, I think we have to do what Governor Sununu has done in New Hampshire. We have to make sure that every decision that we make in New Hampshire is made basically to not put it on the back of the ratepayers. And that's where the legislature failed in the past. They can't let that happen again. Any specifics, though, in terms of projects you would want to see come to the state? No, at this point, I think it's our involvement of lowering taxes and driving businesses to the state is what's working for the state of New Hampshire. Now we have to pay attention to how do we keep electrical costs down and things like that. I mean, we can't be subsidizing projects and putting it on the backs of the ratepayers. Last question for you here. If, God forbid, there's another global pandemic, how would you handle it differently from Governor Sununu? Yeah, the one thing that I strongly believe that Governor Sununu did was he was working from facts that Washington was presenting. And he certainly was making decisions based on that. I mean, the governor was open with me as Senate President throughout that whole process. The one thing that I had major concerns about during that whole process is shutting down anything in New Hampshire, and I think we have to be careful about that. All right, Senator Chuck Morse running for governor. We'll see you out there on the campaign trail. Thanks for having me today. All right.